Hello again. Today I'm going to answer the question, is Hexxit still fun? And I'm going to be honest, after launching the OG Modpack it kind of felt like the answer was going to come pretty fast and it was going to be not really. So we're actually playing Hexxit 2 today, with Thaumcraft added, because I remember liking that one a lot back in the day. But what is Hexxit anyway? Basically it's the magical cousin of Techit. A fat modpack with all of the loot...
Alright.
The loosely compatible magic and adventure themed mods shoved together, with much more of a focus on exploration and looting as opposed to the whole mining and crafting thing. So anyway, let's get into it. I created a world named Shrek's Swamp because, as you might have noticed, I'm Shrek. Immediately I dive into the ocean to loot a chest and pay with my life when it transforms into a horrific giant anglerfish thing. So that's kind of setting the tone here. But not to worry, fair enough, I suppose it's their ocean anyway, so for now we'll stay out of there and poke about on land looking for some wood. For some reason though, this place appears to be absolutely swarming with bears, and it's making me a bit nervous hearing them growl. It's got me looking around as though I'm playing Rust, hitting a tree with a rock whilst keeping an eye out for some sweaty child with a bolt action that wants to lock me up and harvest my blood whilst yelling Brazilian slurs at me. But enough trauma dumping. I dive into some nearby ruins next, and this is something you'll want to get used to, because there's a lot of strange ruins and dungeons like this just scattered all over the world in Hexxit. For now, I'm not really dungeon delving, I'm just stealing some books from the first room I find, but as you can hear, it is absolutely full of monsters and probably loot. I'm not equipped for it though, so we move on. To a nearby giant castle, and I mean really giant, it's absolutely ginormous. It is also on fire, so I head inside to look for the owner of the place and let him know that he's got a small lava problem. Upon staring through this window though, I find something very strange, and actually rather alarming. He's just sitting there, menacingly. Oh, this is even worse. They're having a conversation. Stop it, don't look, it'll humanize them. They're just mindless monsters, don't think about it, they don't have souls, I promise. Right, up on the top, I see this guy who looks decidedly like the boss of the place, and that might be indicated by this health bar at the top of the screen too. I got a little bit too close and he yeets me off the roof with some kind of foul wizardry. So, alright, you win this time, but I'll be back. But not for a while, and especially not tonight, because the sun is going down and lots of very scary things come out at night in Hexxit. So for now I'm going to dig myself a little dirty hole and stare out at the ocean all night. Whilst waiting for night to pass in my dirty hole though, I see a star falling from the sky into the ocean, so I feel like I have to go and check that out, because I don't know how often this happens. And by the time I've swam all of the way out to get it, it's pretty much morning, and I can see in the distance a rather nice looking island with something of a Pirate's Bay type vibe to it. And I'm not just saying that because there's literally pirate ships all over the place. So I start swimming towards that, and on the way there I can see a random patch of diamonds in the sea floor. Very good. I'll mark that and come back once I've got some appropriate tools. Those diamonds are next to another one of those underwater chests, and this one didn't try to kill me. Instead it gave me some handy loot. It's mostly rotten meat, but it also contains some interesting boots. Spider boots. They're a part of a set, but I only have the boots. It also contains a shark sword, which is quite nice. It's roughly equivalent to an iron sword, but with less durability. Eventually I arrive in the bay, which I think I'll be calling the Bay of Birches. And yeah, I think I can see myself settling here. So I dig into a hillside right in the middle of the bay and set up some basic crafting to get us going. While I'm on top of my little hill, you'll notice that there are minerals on the surface that wouldn't normally be here, like this redstone. In Hexxit, ore generation is considerably more generous, making it much easier to get a hold of things that you'd ordinarily have to dig deeper for. This is, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can spend more time adventuring and dungeon crawling and less time mining and crafting. I'm interrupted now though by thoughts of impending death because night is coming, so I realise I need some wool to make a bed, and I don't see any sheep here, but I do see a load of random spider webs. I'm going to break them to gather some string and then dig myself a little bed cave. In doing which, I'm immediately rewarded by a load of diamonds. Yeah, like I said, the deep stuff isn't necessarily so deep in Hexxit. So now we've got a bed and can skip through the night, and in the morning I made a couple of boats, because I want to go and ransack a load more of those ocean chests. Oh, and also go and grab those sea diamonds now that I've made an iron pick. Diving for loot in the ocean isn't necessarily the safest thing in the world. A shark got me at one of the chests here, but that's why I made a second boat. And by the time I'm back there, the shark has despawned, so I can get my stuff back no problem. My stuff, in this case, included some new body armor and some very tasty boots. They let me jump incredibly high and take no fall damage, as well as granting a 15% speed buff. Oh, that's very nice. Now I do some more of the same, just swimming around looting chests in the ocean, but I don't really find anything super noteworthy, maybe aside from this pistol, which I'll quickly demonstrate on a rabbit. Poor thing, never stood a chance. What about this bear? Okay, the pistol is decent, but Smokey here needs finishing off with the spear, which is another good item I found in the sea. It's got a very long attack range, which feels quite good. Allegedly, it also has a chance to insta-kill enemies under 30 HP, but the chance is low enough that that hardly feels impactful. It's time to stash all of that loot for now though, because I think I ought to make an actual base before getting into anything more serious than scavenging flotsam. Because whilst I have a decent gear setup coming along already, it would be good to have the ability to make food and enchant stuff. And whilst I could just do everything inside of a crudely excavated cave, this is Hexxit. I am to be a wizard, and therefore, I need a tower. So first things first, I sail off to a nearby greatwood tree that I've been eyeing up. It's so majestic and beautiful. Must be hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And now it's dead, because I want a giant wooden phallus to work in. Next, after sailing all of the wood home, in the centre of this small body of water I draw out a circle to work from and start building up. Very quickly it's apparent that more than just one majestic and beautiful greatwood will be sacrificing its life for this project. I'm also going to have to do quite a bit of mining to get all of the stone it'll take. And also, there is sand. I'm going to need quite a lot of glass. Thankfully then, video editing exists, so you just get to see the interesting bits. Like when I broke into this dungeon, which isn't actually that interesting in itself, but it does contain this absolute monster vein of diamonds. There are about 30 of them. That'll keep me going for a while. Before hunting down more greatwood trees, I also decided to add a flared base to the burgeoning tower, just in case a nearby giant gives in to the intrusive thoughts and gets it lost up there. Before too long, and surprisingly without needing to get more wood, I've built the ground floor. That one tree managed it even though I was being unreasonably fussy about using stairs to make mouldings for the ceiling. And after a short but eventful trip for some more exotic woods, which included finding another fallen star and witnessing the start of a tragic pirate ship fire, I can finish it off with a door. So, obviously it's a bit of a chode right now, and I thought for a moment about leaving it at that point and getting on with some actual gaming instead, but then I slipped into a fugue state. I spotted my target, cut it down, and then on the way home actually spotted another, cut that down too, and found a chest amongst its roots. Stuffed to the brim with, well, actually mostly garbage, but there's some cool stuff in there. Inventory's full though, so for now I just mark it and head home with my wood. I spent about an hour after this point building it up, and granted a good chunk of that time was spent figuring out this spiral staircase, and I'm not really fully happy with it, but it'll do. It's my tower, that's what matters. So now we can actually play the fun magic mod pack, right? Yeah, we can. I want to get into Thaumcraft, but let's start by building somewhere to enchant stuff. I'll need some obsidian for that, and whilst on the hunt for a pool of lava, I found some of these vis crystals, which are conveniently the thing you need to get started with Thaumcraft. You get a message about resting after picking them up, so we'll see what that means a little later. First though, like I said, obsidian is required. And before too long it's acquired, from a pool of lava not too far to our northwest. I make sure to grab plenty extra for a nether portal too, because I figure we'll need something from there sooner or later. The achievement for mining some obsidian, by the way, is called Ice Bucket Challenge, which so effectively transported me back in time that I had to check that my taint was still hairy. It is, by the way, so very frightfully hairy. Anyway, on the way home I can just about see the tower breaking through the fog, and I think that's why we build these giant phallic edifices, isn't it? So that when you're far away you can still see it and say, that way is home. Of course it's not actually home yet, this little cave is, and after sleeping in there we wake up with a dream diary. How quaint. I dreamt of grinding up vis crystals, so naturally then I'll want to do that in waking life now. But you need a third kind of crystal to do that, and we've currently only got 2. You see them around here and there, so I'll find one soon enough whilst just going about my business, I'm sure. My business currently is enchanting. I got fireproof on my boots and made a couple of diamond swords to put enchants on as well. This one got sharpness 3, and once I had made an anvil I put fire aspect on another. I have no idea what's actually good, so I'm just experimenting, to be honest. Whilst heading home from said experimentation, I noticed a chasm right next to the tower. And would you look at that? A third type of vis crystal. After grabbing them, doing a little bit more mining, and then heading back into my sanctum, we can now do the Thaumcraft thing, making some Salis Mundus. Sprinkle some of that on a bookshelf and it turns into a Thaumonomicon, the book that guides you through the whole Thaumcraft mod. Very good. So now we're getting magical. First things first, we'll need a magical crafting table. And you'll never guess how we made... Oh, you guessed? Yeah, it's more Salis Mundus, that was actually pretty obvious. But not quite so obvious is the Thaumometer, which lets you determine whether there's more to be learned from any particular thing in the world. It looks to require one of each type of vis crystal to create, so I guess we'll need to do some caving. Whilst emptying out the cave home into the tower before I started recording this session, I got attacked by some invisible rare enemy, so to be fair you wouldn't have been able to see it even if I was recording. It dropped a fire staff, which does, well, kind of exactly what you'd expect. I mean, nice, I guess? I also found a heart piece at some point, which actually is nice. 4 of them combine into a heart container, granting 1 additional heart of life, as all good heart containers do. Right then, back into the chasm by the tower in search of more new and interesting vis crystals. Standing on top of said crystals is this zombie going absolutely hog wild, and we'll go end his party after dealing with the gravel creeper. I have no idea what that does, and I don't really want to find out. I'm pretty sure that I have all 6 crystal types around me in this chasm, and after a little exploration and digging around to get at them, there we go, all 6. Nice, so that's one problem solved. But I noticed that some kind of large dungeon complex cuts directly through this chasm, and figure I might as well poke my nose in and see what I find. It's basically just a complex of connected rooms containing combinations of chests and spawners. There's some relatively interesting stuff in here, like these amazing Technicolor glasses, but my inventory quickly fills up with things that I deem useful, most of which are junk, so I get out of there soon enough. Notable items include a shiny new shield, some boots that say they make sprinting faster but absolutely do not, and some undead scorpion boots. Yeah, there's a lot of gear sets in this pack, it seems, and I'm gonna level with you. I never find a complete set in this playthrough, so that's a bit of a bummer. Anyway, I also find this twilight cloak that goes into one of my bauble slots, and allegedly makes me invisible in darkness, but I did not observe that effect at any point in this playthrough either. I think there's a lot of not quite functional gear, but maybe I'm just stupid and have no idea how this stuff works. If that's so, then I guess fair enough, but also tell me how to make things work in-game. Don't make me Google every item I pick up to see if it does anything. Speaking of items I picked up, I got these dusty books. You can use them and get seemingly random user-created books. This is quite an interesting idea, but most of them are entirely uninteresting. I suppose that is true of books in real life as well, though. Unfortunately, most of them are full of weird formatting errors as well, so even if the contents were interesting, they're not very readable. Alright, sorry, enough moaning. For now. Let's get back to Thaumcraft, as I'm able to make the Thaumometer. Through it, you can look at things and make observations, which you can then use to make practical discoveries later on. Before making the scribing table that you make those discoveries on though, it's time to switch up these ugly light brown bookshelves for some more appropriate ones, and also add some variety to them using the chisel. Good stuff. What I'm coming to learn is that in Minecraft my favourite thing is making a nice space to work and live in. Everything else is just extra. And sometimes the extra is bad, as we'll find later. But first, the scribing table. I don't initially understand it really, but you use that paper, some scribing tools, and the hotkey to close HEI to choose between randomly drawn papers that grant progression in the various research categories. That progression unlocks new and more advanced sections of the Thalmonomicon. The upshot of all this is that I can now get into alchemy. So I made a magical cauldron, but to actually alchemize anything I need glowstone, which is conveniently what I want to finish off the tower anyway. So it's nether portal building time then. One nether portal built. I also quickly threw a farm together, because I need reliable food. Bread doesn't exactly do all that much for you, but it's technically food, so that'll do. And one last thing before diving through the portal, I went and got a load of XP so that I could do a tasty pickaxe enchant. I got efficiency 3 and fortune 2 on this one. Very good. Alright, finally then, the nether. Which always takes ages to generate for me. Is it the replay mod that causes that? I don't know. But eventually it generates, and there's all kinds of weird stuff here. Trees, for example. Those aren't normal. There's lots of new stuff to point the thermometer at. There's also this blue stuff in the floor. I'm not sure what it is right now. I can't mine it with my diamond pickaxe, but I'll figure that out later. I'm here for glowstone anyway, so let's go get some. About 10 minutes later, I've got my glowstone, and I have no idea where I am. I have no idea where the portal is either. Huh. I really should have marked it. By some miracle though, I do find it again. Spawning in that tree made it pretty hard to spot from a distance. So now I can get out and make some lamps. No more torches inside of the tower. Civilized. But of course what I actually needed glowstone for was to make niter, a commonly used item in Thalmcraft. I plopped my cauldron out front since it needs a constant heat source underneath it, which didn't feel like a good idea in my wooden tower. And once the water was boiling, I threw in some glowstone and opened up my I just threw my Thalmonomicon into the cauldron as well. Screw it, I'm going to bed. In the morning I made the slightly rogue decision to go out and lure home some chickens for company. Yeah, for company. It's lonely here. I should find someone to do an SMP playthrough with sometime. Subscribe to see that! Maybe, if it ever happens. Right, anyway, with that, problem solved. Was not having chickens a problem? Whatever. I want to go check out this pirate ship that's near the base. I'm pleased to say that everyone in here is indeed a pirate, as indicated by the constant "arr" spam. That means it's okay for me to kill them because I'm LARPing as a privateer for the Navy, you see. But after being slightly exploded by a trapped room, the magical ghost pirates start swarming me. This isn't quite our first introduction to monsters with rare modifiers like these pirates have. Weakness, cloaking, and fiery. I have fought some magical guys before, but I've never seen multiple of the same magical guy spawn. This seems kind of odd. With the fiery mod, of course, they set me on fire. But when would you have guessed that they do that? Because if you guessed when they attack me, you'd be right. But also, confusingly, when I attack them. This is, in my humble opinion, very annoying. And also, didn't I just enchant my boots with fireproof? Does that not mean what I think it means? Anyway, doesn't matter, there's water here, so problem solved. Slowly. Very slowly. Weakness means that they afflict me with weakness, funnily enough, so I also don't do very much damage to them. The horde of magical invisible fiery pirate men collectively dropped a gilded ender shield, which does something, maybe. After fighting through a frankly suspicious number of pirates, like where are they all sleeping on this boat, I make it into their melon storage, a tasty boon that'll sustain me as I fight through roughly 1 billion more pirates, including more weakness-inflicting, cloaking fire ones. For some reason. I don't know why there's so many of these guys. Some of them have spears as well, which is annoying. Only I should be allowed to wield such power. It's unfair when enemies have it too. Anyway, I kind of feel like I'm going to need something better than a diamond sword. And there is such a thing, believe it or not. We'll work on that soon, but for now I did press on because thankfully Minecraft isn't exactly known for its enemies' AI. Unfortunately, I'm not known for my player AI, and as a result I am dead. So to help combat my lack of brain power, I indulged in the time-honoured tradition of compensating with firepower. This time bringing with me my gat. And whilst it does a pretty good job at hitting enemies from a safer distance, it doesn't actually do much damage. I mean, granted I'm just using regular iron ammo, but still. Anyway, eventually I make it to the captain's quarters where I find the man himself, shining magically. After initiating combat, I find that he turns invisible, poisons me, and also sets me on fire, and also takes very little damage. Alrighty then, point taken, I'll come back later. In the hunt for more powerful equipment, I seek out more dungeon-type content, including a smaller pirate-infested vessel which was also flooded for some reason. It contained a magical pirate man who died easily on account of the whirlpool. He dropped another shield. Why is it always a shield? Whatever. To further shores then, where I find a whole damn safari, which is pretty cool, but I came here for this sandy tower and the loot that's contained within. This is called a battle tower. They're all over the place and each floor has monster spawners and chests of loot. Unfortunately, they, along with almost every other dungeon in this mod pack for some reason, generate a little bit busted. There's just holes in all of the floors. The result in this case is that there's a constant monster rain coming down from the spawners above. It's very annoying. Ultimately, I eventually die to a small swarm of poisonous spiders, but I come back because, well, you know, that's just kind of what we do. We run to the death marker. And then I found a water staff in here that does, this. Interesting. Not necessarily, like, you know, good, but interesting for sure. Actually, this probably would be pretty good if you used it in conjunction with a ranged weapon, but regardless, this isn't going well. I keep on dying. After a few more deaths, though, I make it to the roof and find a rare turtling battle tower golem of bolting, which means he runs really fast and takes 50% less damage. That's what Bulwark does. Berserk means that it deals double damage, but also hurts itself when it attacks. Unfortunately, it hurts me a lot more than it hurts itself, so once more, I am dead. This calls, I think, for Tinker's Construct. It's kind of one of the central mods of Hexxit, because a lot of the strongest gear available to the player is made using it. So let's get into it. You start, as you often do, by making a book and reading it. Essentially though, Tinker's boils down to making molds and filling them with material. It's a lot more complicated than that, obviously, but essentially that's the point. The important thing is choosing which materials you put into what molds. First though, you've got to make the things to do that thing with. This involves making a load of special bricks and building them into a particular shape. The shape of a smeltery. Then you make a few different tables. The stencil table here makes the patterns that you fill with materials. So then, let's melt some emeralds, because as far as I can tell, that's the highest tier of vanilla material, and then pour that molten emerald into a wooden pattern of a pickaxe head. Yeah, you obviously can't do that. First you have to use the wooden pattern to make an object out of a harder material, and then pour something like gold or brass over that to make a casting of the tool part. And then we can pour the molten emerald into that casting. It's kind of reminiscent of Vintage Story. And yes, I'm going to play more Vintage Story, by the way. I've been asked roughly 8 trillion times whether I'm going to play it more. Yes, it just takes a very long time. Anyway, sorry, yes, back to it. There we go. I have a pickaxe head now. And with that and the 2 other parts, the handle and the binding, made of dark wood from the nether, bish bash bosh, emerald pickaxe named Pingu's Pickaxe. Noot noot, motherfucker. I don't know why I called it that. The darkwood parts mean that it deals periodic damage to nearby enemies, which is pretty handy. So I went back into the nether to harvest some new and interesting materials, and quickly discovered that constantly damaging nearby enemies does actually have its downsides. So for that reason, my trip to the nether wasn't exactly relaxing. It isn't usually relaxing in the Nether, but this was especially unrelaxing, as the fire manticore struck me down and then followed me back to my world to bully me some more. After that problem was solved, because mobs have a tendency to despawn when you die, I try and get back into the Nether, and they're even trying to get me while I load in. Ugh. Eventually I managed to get back to the business of mining after killing a lot of Nether beings with my shiny emerald sword named Weewa Woo Woo. Enough things, in fact, to level it up, which unlocks an extra modifier slot. I believe this mechanic is quite busted, since you can repair these weapons, so given enough time you can juice them to the gills with a whole lot of modifiers. But wait, what was I here for again? Oh yeah, new and interesting materials. There are two in particular. This blue stuff that I poked with a diamond stick earlier is cobalt, a lightweight metal that tends to give equipment speed buffs, and then this yellow stuff, ardite, which is very strong and will make your gear eat stones to repair itself. The actual point of those two materials though is to alloy them together into manulin, which has over double the damage stat of either of its component metals when used as a tool or weapon head. What we'll be making is a broadsword, the standard Minecraft weapon, with a dark wood handle for that AoE damage effect, and an emerald guard which grants health regeneration when the tool is held, and a blade of manulin for its fat damage. I named it the sword because it's the sword, and it's got an attack of 10.7 with 3 free modifier slots. I quickly checked whether you can enchant these items, but no, you can't, just got to add modifiers. So I added a diamond to it for durability and some extra damage, and then redstone for a haste buff. Then to top it off I added some blaze powder to make it do fire damage. Now I just need to learn how to make some better armor. And perhaps unsurprisingly this involves a book. The process is much the same, just with some new tables, so I won't go into too much detail and just skip to the results instead. I made a full set of armor using ardite for the plating, manulin for the cores, and cobalt for the trim. The result being a set that has quite a bit of protection. I don't really know. I've never actually looked into Minecraft's armor system, but I'm just assuming that bigger number, better person. That's how it usually works. I should really modify this armor, but I think I have to make an armor table of equivalent level to the armor in order to do that, which would cost me 4 manulin blocks. And that's possible, but quite expensive, so instead I want to go and visit that battle tower golem who embarrassed me earlier. When I eventually make it over there, unfortunately I find that this is still an absolutely horrific combat experience. He doesn't hit quite so hard with my new armor, and he does take a little bit more damage with my new sword, but he still hurts and he also sets me on fire, so without a way of avoiding that, I'm being whittled down faster than I'm whittling him. I think it's entirely possible that Minecraft just isn't really a great melee experience. But either way, I did actually kill it, whilst also dying myself. And this causes the tower to collapse, which leaves my grave in a rather unfortunate spot, so yeah, I died getting my stuff back. I also don't really know whether I missed out on some nice loot as a result of dying with the golem and missing the whole tower collapse thing. So honestly, this isn't feeling great. Let's take a break from dungeoneering to check out this nearby village in the desert. I get there and find it a little deserted. I loot a load of bits and then get out of there because back at home I want to see what kind of bow I can make. Maybe that will feel better. I made a short bow of cobalt and manulin with a fire string, the effect of which should probably be obvious. Then I made some arrows of bone and cobalt. The bone shafts give a chance for your arrow to split into 2 when fired, which is pretty neat. Testing it out, it's okay, but it's pretty hard to beat the raw damage output of the sword. So let's pull back here for a moment. It might be getting just a little bit obvious that I'm not actually loving this mod pack. And as a general rule, I don't do things that I'm not enjoying for very long. So instead of me banging my head against more dungeons and bosses and getting increasingly frustrated, I'll trust Pagger to put some relatively interesting clips underneath me talking about why exactly it is that I'm not enjoying it so much. I expect that for some people this particular brand of difficulty is exactly what they're after, and that's fine. I'm sure you'll tell me all about it in the comments. I won't kink shame you for that. But for me though, my experience has been very spiky. A lot of the time with my new shiny Tinker's gear, which from what I could tell is some of the best stuff you can actually make in the mod pack, I'm just absolutely cruising through everything. But then suddenly I'm not anymore because a rare monster has generated with some modifier that either cuts right through my armor and murders me, or takes almost no damage, or is just straight up annoying, or all three. Like, later on I was attacking one of those skeleton-filled castle things and something just kept blinding me, closing in a black fog to surround me. It's just really annoying. And something else kept sucking my weapon out of my hand, like, what is that all about? I don't even know what was doing it, but it kept happening for ages. I'm going to bring up Path of Exile now. I've played it a lot. In fact, I'm playing it right now. Look, pizza totems. And way back in the good old days, there was a mod for rare and magic monsters called Reflect. It would be either elemental or physical reflect, and would just straight up reflect a portion of your damage straight back to you unblockably and unavoidably. Just apply it to you as a number. It was only a portion of your damage, but in Path of Exile, higher end characters tend to hit pretty hard, so a portion of your damage was still usually enough to one-shot you. This resulted in hardcore players having to build characters in such a narrow space just to work around this one mechanic, because it would just show up anywhere and then you would be dead, that's it, all of your time invested gone because this one monster spawned off screen and you hit it. Basically it was very much anti-fun, completely lacking counterplay, and as a result, it eventually got removed. Does this comparison really work for Hexxit? No, probably not. I don't really think anything in Hexxit 2 is quite comparable to that. But my point is that a lot of the enemy modifiers kind of feel more than a little bit anti-fun. I'm sure there is a correct way to build a set of armor and weapons that counters most of them fairly effectively, but then what's all the interesting gear I'm dungeoning for? I don't think I ever found anything in a dungeon that competes with the gear I made at the smeltery, and even that doesn't really feel good enough. So what am I doing all of this for? The title of this video is Hexxit Still Fun? Or something to that effect. And as much as I'd love to fill every one of my videos with positivity and good vibes, if you commit to asking that kind of question, every now and then the answer is going to be no. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun. In the beginning of the playthrough, when I was kinda just playing normal Minecraft. But hang on, wait a second, didn't I say something earlier like, I'll be back? Well, I'm a man of my word. Except for when it comes to making more Star Sector content, I'm probably not doing that anytime soon. So I went back to that castle where, earlier, a mean skeleton man threw me off the roof just for trying to warn him that the place was on fire, and now that I have a sick armor set and sword, I get to fighting through his retinue of diamond-clad bony boys, and actually, finally find a genuinely useful piece of loot in the process, an amulet that makes me immune to fire damage and in fact heals me for taking it. Well, that's just great. I could have used that a few times before. But anyway, I used my bow to start working on the necromancer. Soon enough, I revert to tactics more appropriate for someone of my intelligence, though. Which is to say I pushed him into a corner and hit him till he died. Very good. Alright, with that dealt with, I'm gonna go play some other stuff now. Another RimWorld Odyssey playthrough, more Vintage Story, and probably some Fallout stuff too. But I would actually like to hit some slightly more modern Minecraft stuff. Create is definitely on my radar. So, if you did enjoy this video, then give it a like. In any case though, please remain indoors. It's not safe outside. There's a Giga Bulwark Berserk Fizz Reflect Pigman of Whelping out there. Until next time, goodbye.